Hey everybody, welcome to Common Censored. I'm Lee Camp, joined by Eleanor Goldfield.
Hello, hello.
And this is the show where we talk censored stories and people, sensible solutions, and common ground movements to fight and build.
Wow. I can't really follow that.
But what about the other stuff too?
I feel like you should have said the other stuff because you were on a roll.
Thanks for joining us. Sorry this episode's coming to you a little late this week, but I think the schedule between here and the new year is going to be a bit weird.
Wonky.
But wonky. We're doing our best though, and we're happy to have you. So thanks for joining us. We will cover some important topics going on. A little more on Biden's stunning, amazing, groundbreaking, progressive cabinet and transition team he's putting together. I mean, I am just floored at what a brilliant and wonderful human being he is. And we're going to get into a new lawsuit about the ongoing election fraud. Not Trump's lawsuits, but someone else's. And we got a lot of good stuff here. So let's get into it. Oh, and believe it or not, Russiagate, as if it couldn't fall apart anymore, continues to fall apart more. Whatever remnants, it's like the pieces on the floor are now splitting into pieces.
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
It really is. So let's start off about talking about this amazing, like I said, progressive, women, inclusive, people of color are everywhere. I mean, they're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
And this cabinet that Biden's put together is really, I mean, do you feel moved? I feel moved.
I feel moved to vomit. Does that count? That's still moved.
The latest one, that is, and I feel a bowel movement, so that counts.
There you go. There's a lot of bodily fluids over here, guys. I'm glad this is not a video episode.
Oh, no.
For your sake.
That would be terrible. But the latest one to be added on as Biden's pick doesn't mean she'll necessarily get the position, but Biden's pick for the office of management of the budget, which obviously incredibly important, makes a lot of decisions, is Neera Tanden. Neera Tanden, ding, 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 come on down. And for those who don't know the name Neera Tanden, she is kind of incredible because she's this totally awful sociopathic monster human being who claims to be a Democrat and is on Twitter all of the times. And she spends her days, amazingly, just tweeting trash at real progressives. Just going after anything that could be mildly considered actually progressive.
Well, that's what politicians do now, isn't it? They spend their time on Twitter trashing people who ask legitimate questions.
It's true. That is the main job of most politicians in America. But she apparently has tweeted more than Trump has over the past few years.
Wow.
So she is just spewing out garbage at various progressives. But some of her highlights is she do you remember in 2016 when Bernie's big win was to get some people on the platform committee? So he had he got Cornel West on the DNC platform committee.
I do recall Cornel West being part of that, and that was it's one of my favorite videos still to this day.
Oh yeah,
so sitting there trying to explain simple
moral
concepts of human rights to people that are like, but I don't understand. That's not what we stand for as Democrats. I don't understand. Does not compute.
So she was on that, and she gives a long justification for why we can't have Medicare for all. She famously said that before we went into Libya that we should bomb Libya because we have a deficit and they have oil.
I mean, true.
She said that in order to deal with our deficit and the budget deficit, we need to have entitlements on the table. Because we need that's going to be, in order to balance our budget, we're just going to have to make some cuts to those entitlements.
Could you explain what entitlements are for anybody who's not clear?
So entitlements is a euphemism Actually, it's not a euphemism. It's actually designed by a Republican. The word entitlement designed by a Republican think tank to make you think that it sounds like something like you're a charity cause, and you've been given something because you
from the benevolent masters.
Yeah, the benevolent master. You couldn't really measure up. You weren't really fit for America, and so you're just acting entitled to this stuff like food. And so entitlements it started as a Republican term, but obviously the Democrats, because they are right wing, picked it up, and they now use it like it's normal. And it's all of those things: Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps. Really, these things should be called stuff we fucking deserve, because most Americans work their asses off and are wage slaves,
but let's be
and
clear,
are exploited,
even if you don't.
And even if you don't work your ass off,
you just deserve to have basic human rights. And that's the thing. It's like, yes, actually, like, if you were to, dissect this, we are all entitled to basic human rights, but they don't mean it that way. They mean it in a derogatory way, like, you're so entitled. It's like you want food and housing and water.
and water.
Water.
And that's actually, you didn't even mean to, but that's actually what Narratan sounds like.
But that's how they mean it. They mean it in a derogatory way. And I wanted to highlight that when you said it, because I think it's important that people, like, that we think about the language that's used, because you can quickly fall into these traps. And I know that I oftentimes will go off on tangents about language because I'm a word nerd. But the way that we talk about things is important, It's incredibly important. Like right now, or in a few days, the Venezuela will have another election where they will elect a president, not a dictator. Dictators are not elected typically.
Right.
So, but this is how
CNN calls him a dictator.
Right. But we talk about Macron, for instance, who, has been a complete fucking disaster. You only have to look at the videos of what's been happening in the streets of Paris to know that a lot of French folks would consider him far more dictatorial than someone like Maduro, and yet he's still called president. So the way that we use language is really important, and media literacy is another thing that we've oftentimes talked about. But like the calling it entitlements in that sort of snide, like, oh, these, like, you feel so entitled, is a way to program people into thinking that they don't deserve it, and that that you should feel ashamed if you're asking for health care, or if you're asking for, your basic needs to be met, because you can't get the money through your jobs, or you can't get a job because people aren't fucking hiring because our economy's in the fucking shitter. But instead of shaming the powers that be, this language is meant to make you feel ashamed for not being able to fucking survive in this catastrophe that is late stage capitalism in the United States empire. So
yes, and the fact that they put someone as head of office, budget, whatever the fuck, who believes this crap is like, it's the epitome of doing the opposite of what progressives want. It is a signal to progressives: we don't fucking care. We defeated you by rigging our own primary against Bernie Sanders, and therefore nothing you want matters. And we're actually going to put in the right-wing, actually Republican trolls who claim to be Democrats into these positions that spend their days going after progressives. I mean, she's also incredibly pro-Israel, like the most ardent defender of Israel. Everything they do is lovely, and you can't. And if you speak out about it, you're anti-Semitic. Which I mean, I've been meaning to talk to you about, because I heard you say that Israel's done something wrong, I think, in the past, and that's anti-Semitic.
I know, I hate Jews.
You do hate the Jews.
I don't. For the people who listen to this that aren't aware, I'm Jewish. So is Lee. And I don't hate Jews.
Jewish by birth and atheist.
Well, no, there was no rabbi there when I was
choice.
born.
I'm atheist by choice.
Thank God. Don't thank God. But there was no rabbi present at my birth, thankfully. No, but both Lou.
Lou. I don't know if you folks know, I've changed my name to Lou.
Both Lee Lee and I, by the way, I
know,
haven't started drinking yet. I am stone cold sober.
In lieu of having Lee here, we've got Lou.
Oh, thank you. That was a good one. Lee and I are both culturally Jewish. And this is another tangent. I'm sorry. It's going to be a very tangential episode today. But this is actually something that I was talking to my dad about recently. And it's something that I read in a book called The Ballad of the Anarchist Bandits. Highly recommend it. It's a brilliant book about turn of the century anarchist organizing in France. And as a Francophile and as a fan of anarchist literature, this was like right up my alley. Anyway, there was a point in that book where the author highlights that in turn of the century Europe, and I'm assuming it was probably something that was used here in the U.S. as well, they referred to Jews as, quote, cosmopolitan anarchists. And I read that and I was like, holy shit, that's me.
I like that.
But what that reminded me of is that, people oftentimes have accused Jews of owning everything, of being like the ultra capitalists. But then they're also, the cosmopolitan anarchists that, they're just as dangerous as commies. And it's like, well, pick a lane. You can't have both. We can't be like the evil bankers that run Wall Street while also being anarchists. That doesn't fucking make sense.
Right.
And this is the same thing with, the immigrants are stealing all our jobs, but they're also really fucking lazy. Well, they can't be both. And this also sort of ties into the issue with Israel, which is it's not anti-Semitic to be against Israel. It's anti-Semitic to be against Jews. And to be clear, when Netanyahu says shit like "I speak for all Jews," no, he doesn't. No, he does not. And Israel cannot both be a pillar of the oppressed, being like, the idea. And I think, God, who was it who said this? I can't remember, but it was a Jewish philosopher who said that the role of the Jew is to stand with the oppressed. You can't be a pillar of justice and also be the most oppressive regime in that area that has basically the world's largest open air prison, which is the West Bank and Gaza. You can't be both at the same time. So that's what pinged my memory about these issues of, these mutually exclusive points. And so that's why it's so important to recognize that Israel does not equal Judaism. Find yourself one of those, go online and get one of those equals signed with the X in it. Judaism does not equal Israel. Israel does not equal Judaism. Critique of Israel is not only not anti-Semitic, it's incredibly necessary, because it's incredibly necessary to separate these issues, because the support of Israel leads to the rise of anti-Semitism, because it supposes that all Jews are this oppressive and all Jews are interested in finagling weapons contracts with the United States, and all Jews are in support of AIPAC, and it just leads to this horrific rise in anti-Semitism. So it's very important that we make that distinction, and again reiterate that really the place of Jews is with the oppressed, because of that, the long history of oppression of Jews throughout the world. So our job is to highlight the ills that Israel is perpetuating in our name. So, that was another tangent.
And Merry Christnica and Happy Hanumas.
Hanumas. That makes me want hummus.
No, all good points. And so I'll just wrap this up by saying, unless you want to talk more about how having women and people of color in all of these positions, it it doesn't mean anything if you're just having them stand for the same shit, the same empire. I mean, I think we mentioned this on a previous episode, but the mainstream media can't get enough of this. Can't get enough of saying, "Look at that diversity. This is a groundbreaking moment. We have a woman of color in the vice presidency, and the woman here, and a woman's gonna drop the bombs, and a woman's gonna," and it's like, yeah, those are all wonderful, but if they don't stand for anything different, what the fuck does it matter?
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, I actually wanted to share a tweet by Jamal Bowman, who this past
Bowman
cycle.
or Bauman?
Bowman.
I don't
Bowman.
know. I don't know.
Anyway, he's elected congressman from New York.
And he's
16th.
He's an elected congressman too. I feel like he's both.
He is. That's true. The 16th district. He's a former middle school principal,
and he's an actual progressive, as far as I can tell.
So, it recently came out The Hill, which is the establishment rag here in DC.
I'm gonna trash on The Hill in a minute too.
Oh, cool!
Yeah.
Yay. So The Hill was reporting on things that Obama said, which it's fascinating that like Obama has said like shit in the 4 years of Trump's presidency. And as soon as there's a progressive like muttering, as soon as like the progressives are like, we demand, he's like whack-a-mole all of a sudden. He's like front and center.
Or even the NBA going on strike.
Exactly.
Go back to work.
Exactly. It's like, well, where were you,
laborers,
for 4 fucking years when this horrific, fucking circus show of a president was, shitting all over the deep state. Where the fuck were you?
He was off writing his memoir justifying everything he's done.
Well, right. And so his most recent comment that the Hill Post published was that you lose people with the, quote, snappy slogans like defund the police.
Well, this is also the polar opposite of what they said about Occupy. There's no demands. And then you give a demand and they go, the problem is you have a demand.
Well, right. And Jamal Bauman, sorry, I don't know.
I don't know either. I feel like I've been corrected both ways. So.
Okay, well, I'm just going to say Jamal B. Jamal B is black. I should also preface it by saying that. And his tweet was, "Damn, Mr. President, didn't you say, quote, Trayvon could have been my son, quote? In 2014, Black Lives Matter was too much. In 2016, Kaepernick was too much." Because if you'll recall, Obama said that Kaepernick taking a knee was embarrassment, or it was mean to the veterans. And
Kamala Harris said it was Russia that created the Kaepernick moment.
I actually saw a hammer and sickle on Kaepernick's knee when he was kneeling.
Yeah, well, he had surgery and they inserted Russian bots.
Yeah. Jamal continues, "Today discussing police budgets is too much. The problem is America's comfort with Black Death, not discomfort with slogans."
Damn.
I know. And I've seen there have been a lot of great responses from a lot of Black Lives Matter organizers, from a lot of Black and brown organizers across the country in response to Obama's bullshittery with regards to defund the police. But the basic point there is, you are, as Cornel West pointed out, the black poster child for Wall Street. You do not represent the interests and the demands, certainly, of black folks in the United States. You are not that representative. And in fact, if you look at, Obama's presidency, black folks did worse under him than they did under Bush, which is embarrassing.
And so the other thing Bowman did, he was on CNN last week, and I happened to catch it because I wanted to hear what he would say on CNN because I knew he's a little edgier than CNN generally allows. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to see what he would say. And so I unmuted it. It was playing in the office, and I unmuted it, and the redacted night offices. And he's asked about Biden's cabinet, and the interviewer does kind of a quasi gotcha question where she's like, so there's a lot of women on this cabinet. There's a lot of people of color. Is this still not progressive enough for you? So it's kind of like setting him up to be like, whoa.
Yeah, of course.
No, I don't care about women. And instead he goes, he talks about, because Rahm Emanuel is being floated for one position, Obama's former fucking like mafia don or something. Mm-hmm. And he was also the former mayor of Chicago. Horrible, awful
Absolute
mayor.
piece of shit.
And And so Bowman, Jamal Bowman goes, well, you know, it's not progressive enough at all. I mean, if you're talking about people like Rahm Emanuel, and he gets in, he's like who allowed and covered up the death of I can't remember his name in Chicago.
Elijah. Oh, is it Elijah Cummings?
No.
But oh no, I'm sorry. That's Aurora, Colorado.
Okay. Well, I can look it up in a second. But
Sorry.
anyway, he's like he covered up the death of this black man, and he's I think Bowman got into the fact that Rahm Emanuel actually stopped the universal option on healthcare. And anyway, he just starts trashing Rahm Emanuel in a way that he absolutely deserves, because it's absolutely true.
It's all true.
And here's the thing. Is I get that a lot of these interviews, including this one, was done via Zoom, and Zoom can get cut off. And I've seen these interviews where Zoom gets cut off. But when Zoom gets cut off, it usually glitches first, it freezes first, the video freezes and the audio keeps going. Something happens. Instead, this just shuts off and becomes a CNN logo. Immediately. And there's no way this was just some accidental disconnection. Furthermore, when they accidentally lose someone via Zoom, they go, looks like we lost him.
We're going to try to get them back.
We're going to get him back, and we're going to finish. There was no suggestion they were getting him back. This was, we lost Jamal Bowman, but let's move on to the next thing.
Right.
And I was like, they absolutely turned this guy off. This was different than, we lost the connection with Zoom.
Yeah, and I think after that, actually, I don't remember who it was, where I saw it, but there was definitely some article that said, this was absolutely cut off, and it was done on purpose, and it was because he was pointing out these issues with Rahm Emanuel.
I think it was Laquan McDonald, maybe.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Did I lose you?
Sorry, I thought you were still talking.
No, I stopped.
Okay. It looks like it was Laquan McDonald who he brought up, but Rahm Emanuel covered up the killing of that. Of that man.
I thought you meant okay.
So, but yeah. Anyway, we can move on now. I think that's enough of tearing apart Biden's awful transition in cabinet. We'll probably bring you more of that next week or the week after or whatever. But so I want some quick housekeeping before we get on to the next topics. Eleanor's movie has won more awards. It kind of never ends, the amount of accolades this film is grabbing. So if you have not seen Hard Road of Hope yet, I highly recommend you check it out. Maybe you go and you pay the $5 for it, and you then give the link to a friend or something, or let them watch as a gift. And it's at hardroadofhope.com. And also, we are not doing a live stream this weekend. Like I said, our schedules over these holidays is going to be up and down. But so no live stream Sunday. And I believe there won't be a Common Censored this coming week. But anyway, just keep checking back. We'll keep giving you as much content as we can. I'll also have it all at leecamp.com. And you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/commoncensored to keep this show running and rocking and rolling. All right, let's keep going and get into the latest lawsuit. Shall I start that one?
Indeed.
So, Greg Palast, friend of the show, friend of Redacted Tonight, and I know him well. Longtime investigative journalist, done some great work. Really focuses on election. I mean, I call it election fraud. I don't think he uses the term election fraud, but I'd say purging hundreds of thousands, really millions of people, largely people of color, from the rolls. I'd call that election fraud. Even if others don't. I mean, I've literally had the people that claim to be left-wing be like, don't call it election fraud. And
what do they want you to call it?
Suppression. It's nice. It presses down the vote. Suppression. It doesn't. It does. Just because this person shows up to the poll, can't vote, and a different candidate wins because of it, that's not election fraud.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. If you don't want to call it fraud, call it theft. But it's not suppression. Suggests that there's a way that you could get around it. But if you're not on the voter roll anymore, there's no way to get around that. You've just been struck.
Right. And suppression is the correct word for when, like, they slow down the vote so people are waiting in line for hours. That is suppression. They could vote, but they choose not to because the line's too long.
Right.
That's suppression. There are ways of suppressing the vote. This, I feel, is election fraud. Anyway, so Trump, wants to say that he won, which he didn't. But the truth is, hundreds of thousands of people in Georgia, and we're specifying Georgia right now, both because it's where one of the places Trump is focusing his efforts to overturn the election, but also because there are 2 runoffs in Georgia that will determine the control of the Senate. Now, we don't normally spend that much time on these things because I think everyone who listens to this knows our feeling on electoral politics. You should vote, but it shouldn't be everything you talk about. However, this is unique. It determines the control of the Senate, but also 300,000 people were purged from the rolls in Georgia. Again, these are largely people of color and poor people, and they are far more likely, maybe 2/3 to I don't know, 3/5, 4/5 Democratic voters. And of those, Greg Palast has brought a lawsuit along with other organizations to demand that 200,000 of those be put back on the rolls for the runoff. That is January 5th, I believe. And this lawsuit is going through right now. And here's a quote from The Hill that was covering this. The plaintiffs, which included the Black Voters Matter Fund, the Transformative Justice Coalition, and the Rainbow Push Coalition, based their lawsuit on the Georgia chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, report. The ACLU release from September cited an independent journalist and said Georgia purged about 300,000 people from the voter registration list last year.
He who must not be named.
He who must not be named. Greg Palast has now become this, investigative journalist. No one's ever proven he did anything fake or false. He's a great journalist.
No, that's the problem. If he had been wrong more often,
then he could be on CNN.
Yeah.
Yet he is, like me or you, someone that it is not good for the corporate airwaves to be promoting. They don't want him to do well. They don't want him to be well known. And so they go through this whole article never mentioning that, honestly, none of this would have happened without Greg Palast. I mean, in this case, he is the one who did the research that allows this to be going on. And how do they purge how do they pick which people to purge? Well, a lot of them are purged by doing things like sending a postcard to the address. And because the postcard isn't returned, they say that means they don't live there and therefore they can't vote because their address is incorrect. Well, most of those people still live there.
Well, and also, I mean, I know you have a joke about this, which I'm not going to try to do because it wouldn't be funny. But also, I feel like they teach you about this, I don't know, if not in school, then later on you hear about it, urban legends and shit. It's like, oh my God, well, if you get a postcard and then it says return it and then you do, then they're going to kill your babies or something it becomes this thing where it's like, oh my God, if you return it, then they get your DNA and then they create they can create a clone army from the DNA that's left on that postcard.
A clone army or a cologne army?
I mean, it depends on how much cologne you have on. I think anyone who wears cologne is
Have you ever walked through Adams Morgan on a Saturday night?
Unfortunately, I have.
It smells like a cologne army, and it will
does.
knock you on your ass.
It does. It's actually, to me, that is more violent than actually walking through an actual barracks. Anyway, yeah, but so outside of the fact that people won't notice the postcard or whatever, the amount of people that probably saw that and thought, this is some fucked up scam that I want no part of, because this is, obviously not legitimately from the DOE, the Department of Elections. They wouldn't pull something like this. Right.
And so anyway, if this lawsuit goes through fast enough, it's possible these people could be returned to the rolls by January 5th. And for those of you out there who are like, well, that shows that maybe Trump did win and these people were purged. Well, the truth is that in the general election, these purgings are done mainly by Republican governments, Republican states. And in Georgia, it's the same thing, and they're doing it to hope that more Republicans win, that the Republicans beat the Democrats, because the Democrats, people of color and poor people are more likely to vote for Democrats. And the fact that Joe Biden won by only 10,000 votes while 200,000 people are illegitimately purged from these rolls, it goes to show that if these people had been on the rolls, Biden would have won by even more. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's understandable why they wanted to purge these people. It is yet more Jim Crow that is still in existence, stopping black people from voting. And anyway, this lawsuit continues. For more on it, look up Greg Palast's Twitter account. He has a video up there featuring Rosario Dawson talking about this. And it's an important issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shall we move to what the somber anniversary is today?
Yes, absolutely. Today we're recording this on December 4th, by the way. It is the anniversary of Fred Hampton's assassination. For folks who don't know who Fred Hampton was, he was the leader of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panthers. He was assassinated 51 years ago. And he was only. This is one of those things that kills me when I read it. I'm like,
underachiever.
He was 21 when he was assassinated.
I was gonna say 23.
No. He was 21 when he was killed.
He's and you watch all these speeches, and he's brilliant.
Oh, I know. He's and this is one of the, like, when I was 21, I'm not even going to get into it. It's just going to make me upset.
Well, you were leading one of the chapters of Black Panthers at 21, weren't you?
So, just an incredible orator, an incredible organizer. Really lived that revolutionary idea and the ideals that he had learned by reading and by organizing with fellow Black Panthers. And this is something that was very important to the Black Panthers. And in fact, he was murdered after coming back from a political education meeting. And this was something that was really, really important to.
And he was the one shot in his bed, right? Like 90 times.
Yeah, because he was given the FBI agent, who I think it was the one who cooked his dinner, basically
drugged him. And then they I've seen footage of the room afterwards, and it's just covered with bullets.
Yeah, no, it's obscene. It is absolutely I'd say it's a massacre, but I don't know if you can have a massacre of one person, but it is horrifying. And it's slaughter, and it is. It's not the only one, of course. The Black Panthers were heavily targeted, and several of their members were murdered, assassinated. And actually, here's a little tidbit as well. I believe it was also in 1969, the same year that Fred Hampton was murdered. It was the first time that a SWAT team was ever deployed, and that was in Los Angeles. And it was against the Black Panthers. They were deployed to a Black Panther house. So this idea that
the original use of SWAT.
Yep. So this idea that the SWAT team was created as an anti-terrorist, as their name suggests, an anti-terrorist.
They were a terror to white corporate America.
The Black Panthers.
Black Panthers.
Not the SWAT team.
Not the SWAT team. So they had to stop the terrorists with the SWAT team.
So yeah, and this is a little tidbit that I got from Our Enemies in Blue. It's a great book by Christian Williams about the history of policing, and little nuggets of information like that really speak to the trajectory of policing, born from slave patrols all the way up to today.
And if you want to hear some short tidbits from Fred Hampton's speeches, they're online. I tweeted one out today. You should check it out. But in that clip, he's making the brilliant point that you have, the ruling elite. I don't know if he uses. I'm paraphrased. I don't know if he uses that term exactly, but you have the ruling elite as one half of the people. Well, they're not half the people, but of one group, and then you have the oppressed, and the oppressed are much larger, but the oppressed are told to hate each other. You have, as he says, you have black people hating white people. You have white people hating Hispanic people. You have Hispanic people hating indigenous people. And they're all, and he keeps going down the list, and the oppressed spend their time hating each other rather than joining together to fight back against their oppressors. And it's a pretty great speech.
And also, kind of circling back here, this was the Chicago police who murdered Fred Hampton. And, circling back to Rahm Emanuel, folks might recall the Chicago black site that was operating, which was operating under Rahm Emanuel.
Define what a black site is.
So a black site is something that predominantly is used, in foreign wars or domestically by like the FBI and the CIA. It's basically where they disappear people. So it's a place where there's no checking you in at the counter at the police station. Like there's none of that shit. There's maybe like a handful of people that know where you are, and then even people in that same organization don't know where you are.
And often if friends or brothers or even lawyers go to the regular precinct and say, we know this guy was arrested, where is he? They'll say, we don't have him.
Right.
Like they'll act like you don't exist.
Exactly. And so the Chicago black site that was operated for years by the Chicago police is where
Currently, this isn't back in,
I'm
sure it existed in Fred Hampton's time, but I'm saying this is recent.
Yeah. Well, that's my point. Rahm Emanuel was in charge during the running of this black site. And this is where, people were brought and tortured. Like, and I'm not saying this be hyperbolic. This shit is like well documented. If you look up like Chicago black site, Chicago PD or something like that, you will find ample reporting about this issue. And this only came to light, what was it, like last year or something, or maybe 2 years ago? But this is something that was that occurred under Rahm Emanuel, and this is so there's a trajectory from the days of Fred Hampton to today, of course, as well. And there's a quote from Fred Hampton that I wanted to share as well, that I think is apt for the upcoming days here. Quote, "We ain't gonna fight no reactionary pigs who run up and down the street being reactionary. We're gonna organize and dedicate ourselves to revolutionary political power and teach ourselves the specific needs of resisting the power structure, arm ourselves, and we're gonna fight reactionary pigs with international proletarian revolution." And I think that is very apt, because if there's one thing that we can see from history if we look at it, which is why learning history is so important, of course, for, that and many reasons. Reactionary organizing or reactionary activism doesn't do shit. This issue of always being back on our heels, of always being in the point where we have to find a response to the horrors that have already been committed, that is not a way to actually affect change, to actually affect progress and get what we need, what we demand. If you look historically, the only times that things have shifted is when people are proactive, when they're not reactionary, but they say, you know what, fuck this. I am going to do this. I'm going to build this in my community. I am going to invest my time and energy in community self-defense. I'm going to invest my time and energy in food sovereignty in my community. These ways to work around the power structure that oppress and make it impossible to survive and, of course, thrive. That is the way forward, not this reactionary bullshit, #resistance, please, may I have some more bullshit. That does not work. It has never worked and it will never work. So I think that this is something that Fred Hampton did talk about quite a bit, and that is something that we should really be taking with us into January, into the Biden administration, so that we're not appeased by the platitudes that are pushed out of the mouths of his female cabinet or his fucking rainbow cabinet or whatever the fuck.
His Benetton.
Yeah, this Benetton ad cabinet. Do not be swayed by those platitudes, and do not be swayed by the reactionary elements that arise against his decisions. Be proactive instead.
Well said. Well said. All right, let's get to our final topic here. I know you think this is over because they want you to think it's over. They want you to think, oh, this is all said and done. But the truth is, for the few people that continue to investigate what exactly the fuck went on with the Mueller report and what exactly it says and what happened, it just, every last remaining stick and stone that could possibly hold up this rickety, sad, pathetic conspiracy theory has just collapsed and crumbled. And as anybody listening to this probably knows, I am not saying that as a Trump supporter. I'm saying that as a truth supporter. This just isn't fucking real. So Aaron Mate had on his it's kind of a podcast. You can also go get it at the Gray Zone. It's called Pushback. He had on Rick Gates, who is a former Trumper, and he's on Trump's staff. And so he and Aaron Mate is at the very least a left-wing Democrat, but really farther left than that. And so they don't agree on policy at all. And at various points where Rick Gates mentions policy, Aaron Mate is like, I disagree with you on that, but really what I want to talk about is the Mueller report. and yet they agree on how pathetic this thing was and how awful it was. And what makes this particular moment interesting, and Aaron Mate plays some of these clips, the mainstream media, CNN, MSNBC, when Rick Gates agreed to cooperate with the Mueller report, with the Mueller investigation, they fucking jizzed themselves. They ran around going, Trump's former Trump staffer Rick Gates is working with the Mueller investigation. This could be it. This is it. We have got it. He's a Trump guy coordinating, working with the Mueller investigation. We've got Trump. This is, oh my God, it's fucking going down, man. They were so excited. Rachel Maddow is so excited. And yet in this interview, well, I'll read this headline and then I'll go into it a little bit more. But, quote, key Mueller witness Rick Gates debunks key Russiagate conspiracy theories, such as Konstantin Kilimnik is a Russian spy, Paul Manafort served Russian interests, and Roger Stone gave Trump campaign advance notice on WikiLeaks email releases. So each of those three things are major tenets of any kind of conspiracy theory that was largely debunked by the Mueller report, despite the fact Mueller tried to put a sugarcoating on it. He tried to say, oh, we did find something. He then indicted 14 people at the clickbait farm and then quietly dropped all those indictments before the election because he knew there's nothing there. There's nothing really to indict them on. They're not connected to the Russian government, and what they posted on Facebook was sad little memes. And anyway, so this guy Rick Gates in this interview, and it gets very detailed. If you want the real nitty gritty, then you can definitely watch the interview with Aaron Mate. But Konstantin Kilimnik was this translator that was working in the administration in the Ukraine, and the conspiracy theorists, like Rachel Maddow, want to say, oh, this guy's a Russian agent, and he infiltrated and was working with the Trump campaign. But there's no evidence of that. There's no evidence he's a Russian agent. There's more evidence that he was actually working with maybe the State Department or something. Paul Manafort, former Trump campaign manager, they claim that he gave the Russians this internal polling data, this top secret internal polling data to help the Russians do their dastardly work. And Rick Gates says, none of it was like amazing, intricate polling. This is like polls from a few days ago of like where Trump's doing well, and it wasn't given to like the tops of the Russian government. It was like Paul Manafort trying to make himself seem important, and that's you see this again and again. Of what these guys are guilty of, it's them lying about what information or what power they have to look important. The last one is of these tenets is of these pillars of these conspiracies. Roger Stone, who they claimed gave Trump, he knew what WikiLeaks was going to leak, and he told Trump. But in fact, he told Trump, he claimed he had knowledge of what was going to be leaked, and then he didn't. And then when he finally told them what was going to be leaked, Julian Assange had already outed what was going to be leaked. So really, Stone had no backdoor communications with Julian Assange, other than they did find some emails or some, Twitter emails between Assange and Stone, with Assange telling Stone to stop misrepresenting that he had information from WikiLeaks. So those are the communiques between Assange and Stone. And anyway, it's an amazing interview. Rick Gates says that he did cooperate with the Mueller report, but they left out anything he said that didn't further their cause in the report. So,
yeah, well, I have no comment. But it's all.
I know you're a big Russiagate believer. You've been really on board with it because you do watch Rachel Maddow every night. So
I do. It's no, there's so much to say and there's so little to say because I feel like I've said all of it already, and yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm glad that Aaron Mate digs into these turds so that I don't have to, because it does suck when it's like the mainstream media's moved on, and they've moved on because they know that if they stay on it, they'll have to report that things are falling apart. So they act like it's all old news. So really none of us are reporting on it anymore, with the exception of maybe Aaron Mate. I mean, there's almost no one. And so I felt the need to put this in here. But
absolutely.
Because I think people need to know just how much these conspiracies have all fallen apart. And it's funny that the same people who bought into this full conspiracy, hook, line, and sinker, ran around saying Trump colluded with Russia to steal the election, all that horse shit. They're the same people who like to, point at leftists and say that everything we say is a conspiracy theory. Like the U.S. is an empire that will never stop bombing countries. They're like, that's a conspiracy theory.
Well, there's the post-truth world.
All right, guys, we are going to wrap up here. We're going to do 10 extra minutes over at patreon.com/Common Censored. Please join us over there, and thank you so much for supporting the show. I don't believe there will be a new episode this coming week. Like I said, the schedules are a bit bumpy here for the holidays, but we will have an episode for you soon, and we can't thank you enough. We hope you're hanging in there in these rough times.
And if you, again, we're headed to Patreon to do a little extra, and I'll tell you that I'll give you a little, teaser to perhaps encourage you to give if that feels available to you. We're going to talk about the drilling in Alaska. In Alaska's Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. So please, if you feel like that's something that you want to dig into a little bit, just for a little extra content, head over to patreon.com/Common Censored, and we'll see you over there.
And all of Eleanor's work is at artkillingapathy.com, and my stuff's at leecamp.com. Until next time, keep fighting.
Act out.